This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I am fully prepared tonight.
Yeah, for the first time.
I did think of something funny to say, which was, and I'm the star of Made to Order, a cryptids production, but we both know that I am not the star.
That's true.
The star was actually Val,
the chef.
Her handwork.
So
either that or Bobby placing the half apron over Joe.
We finished recording and producing our movie, and I gotta say it's pretty freaking great.
Did you mention the movie in the last?
I must have. We'll post it probably when this episode comes out.
For those of you that are confused, we participated in the 48-hour movie thing. we managed to do it.
We barely did, but yes. Anyway, so we have a movie to show you guys, and I'm Carter Rhodes, and this is an exceptionally fitting episode, because we are reviewing Renfield, and we are in the thick of Dracula Daily. Do you know what Dracula Daily is?
You've mentioned it, but tell the viewers.
Okay, so the novel Dracula has dates that it follows, because a lot of it is in the form of a journal. So they send you chapters of Dracula, so it's like it's happening in real time. And it's just very fun to be like, I wonder what my old buddy Jonathan's up to. Last time he said, it was 3 days ago, and he said he was trapped in a castle with what I know to be Dracula. Sure hope he's doing okay.
That is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Yeah.
And then it goes, like, the past 2 or 3 days have been just Mina and Lucy just, like, talking about boys they like. And I'm like, Jonathan is fighting for his life right now. Middle of Transylvania, convinced that he's gonna die.
Jeez.
Renfield is actually a character, I believe.
Yeah.
In that.
So for those of you who don't know, we are reviewing the movie Renfield. I don't know. Which came out this year, last month. Yeah.
Something like that.
It was the same night as Evil Dead.
Yeah.
I don't know if we made a wise choice, but I think we did.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Renfield was worse.
I do have an announcement.
Okay.
I have finally looked into developing a movie rating system beyond just how I feel. So from moving forward, ignore all of my previous ratings. Moving forward, there is a basis behind it.
Okay, good. I go off general feeling, except I have more faith in my feelings, I suppose.
And by this rating skill, I mean, I found a blog where I liked what they said per numbers, and I said, yup, that's it.
Perfect.
So it is still generally feeling based.
Okay, terrific. So, the movie Renfield follows Dracula's familiar, Renfield, who is in an abusive relationship with Dracula, who, by the way, spoiler alert, is Nick Cage. It's a dark comedy, and before we get into it, we're going to tell you a little bit about how we conduct this podcast.
For those of you who are new here, thanks for coming. What we do is that we give a plot of the movie, we discuss some fun facts, and then we review it in the good, the bad, and the spooky, and then we give our overall impressions, our
Ralph Bones Memorial Line highlight,
and our overall impressions and our rating. And that's pretty much it.
All right.
So take away with the plot.
Okay, so movie follows Robert M. Renfield, the familiar of Dracula. I believe in the original Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think that's accurate, that he is his familiar.
I think it is considered RM. Oh, that he is his familiar, and he eats bugs in the original Dracula as well.
I didn't know that. Well, anyway, he's been given, as Dracula's familiar, he's been given the power of immortality, as well as super strength and speed when he consumes bugs. And in exchange, Renfield will bring Dracula victims for him to drink the blood of, and just in general does all the things that a vampire can't do. A lot of just going out during the day and doing stuff. After 90 years of relationship, it's become clear that it's very toxic. Dracula's constantly berating Renfield and has increasingly strict demands. Eventually, Dracula is nearly killed by a group of hunters, and Renfield takes him to New Orleans so he can heal. Renfield begins attending a self-help group for escaping abusive relationships, and he will listen for details about their abusive partners, and then go and usually kill them, and take them to Dracula. And that's his way of ethically sourced blood, I suppose. And during one attempt, he tries to kill a man who stole drugs from the Lobo crime family. An assassin who is sent to kill them attacks him, and Renfield has to use his powers to kill him. Teddy Lobo, which by the way is short for Tedward, he's the heir to the crime family. He sees this and just books it. Meanwhile, Renfield takes the corpses back to Dracula, and Dracula's dissatisfied with the blood. He's like, I want pure blood. Nuns!
A bus full of cheerleaders.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the other ones.
Me either.
Meanwhile, Teddy's still running for his life, and he...
Oh, virgins. I think.
Did you say virgins? I don't think he said virgins.
Oh, then I don't know.
So Teddy ends up bumping into Rebecca, who's a police officer whose father was killed by the Lobo crime family, and she finds him with a whole bunch of drugs. But despite all this evidence, Teddy walks. So Rebecca is looking for something to connect Teddy to the murders of the assassin, thinking that might help her convict him, but she's unknowingly just tracking down Renfield. And they eventually end up at the same restaurant where Teddy returns to kill her for revenge or whatever, and Renfield takes a bug, and together the two of them just kill, like, everybody. Teddy escapes, though. So Renfield, first of all, Teddy goes home and tells his mother, who says, okay, well, we gotta kill this Renfield fellow as revenge for some reason. And Renfield goes home to their, like, abandoned insane asylum that they live in, and Dracula's up and about, and he's like, you know, Renfield, what you said to me that I deserve better? You're right. I shouldn't be hiding around. I should be the king of the world. I'm going for world domination. So Renfield ends up listening to a self-help group and leaves Dracula because it's an abusive relationship. He buys an apartment and tries to just make a new life outside of him, starts wearing modern clothes, stuff like that. Teddy tracks down where Renfield was, which was the asylum, but spoiler alert, Dracula's there. So he starts talking to Dracula, and Dracula agrees to team up with the Lobo crime family and get world domination. Dracula hunts down Renfield, and then as revenge for the betrayal, kills everyone in the self-help group. Rebecca shows up and finds that Renfield is surrounded by bodies and arrests him. At this point, like, it's towards the end of the movie, and still not every character is in on the Dracula thing. So the Lobos are like, hey, we're gonna kill Renfield. So Rebecca, because she hates them, takes him on a drive away from them. She passes out, and he takes her to his house, and he explains everything and tells her he wants to change. The only person that Rebecca can trust is her sister Kate, but she's been kidnapped by the Lobo crime family. They want Renfield. So Rebecca and Renfield raid the Lobo, I don't know, mansion, museum, wherever the fuck they are.
It's definitely a mansion.
Where Dracula's staying. It's like in the center of the city.
They are quite wealthy.
In any event.
It still is odd that they live in this huge mansion. And it is kind of like a museum because they have things in glass. Like, it's not wrong for you to be like, is this a museum?
Yeah.
It was odd. So they also have a killing room.
Yeah, they do.
With torture devices. Anyways.
So Dracula's staying at the mansion. I'm not really sure why, but
he teams up with...
Well, I said that. It's just, I don't know why he's living there now. They kill... Rebecca and Renfield kill most of the soldiers and Teddy, who'd been turned into a familiar. And Dracula reveals that Rebecca's sister Kate is mortally wounded, and only his blood and its healing properties can save her. But he'll only do that if Rebecca agrees to serve him, Rebecca pretends to accept and then turns on the electric shades, which open up and start to burn him. And after a fight, they manage to trap Dracula in this magical circle made out of cocaine, and they destroy him, and then they use his healing blood to revive all the dead friends. Tell us some fun facts.
Okay. Despite a history of turning down non-leading roles in studio films, Nicolas Cage did sign on to play Dracula. He didn't need to be convinced because this is a lifelong dream of his to play Dracula. While promoting Season of the Witch in 2011, Cage said his love for his co-star Christopher Lee is the reason he makes horror movies, and Lee is considered one of the best actors to portray Dracula on screen.
Christopher Lee, fun fact. First of all, was in a spy in World War I, I believe. Might have been World War II. And he actually is a direct descendant of Charlemagne, which isn't as exciting as it sounds, because the further back you go, the more kids everyone had. At a certain point, like, everybody can pretty much trace their heritage to someone notable. But what's interesting about Christopher Lee is he has Charlemagne's Y chromosome, which means that his father's 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 father all the way up to Charlemagne. That
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Mm-hmm. All right. Nicolas Cage's uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, directed Dracula in 1992, and the studio wanted Nicolas Cage instead of Keanu Reeves to play Jonathan Harker, but Coppola did not want to work with Cage after having a bad experience on Peggy Sue Got Married in 1986.
To be fair, he was almost certainly high on cocaine when that happened.
Yeah. So there's this thing called Renfield syndrome, which is also known as clinical vampirism. It's a rare psychiatric disorder where an individual has an intense fascination with drinking blood or believing themselves to be a vampire. This syndrome is named after the character R.M. Renfield from Bram Stoker's Dracula, who consumes insects to obtain their life force. So yeah, Nicholas Hoult portrays Nicolas Cage's son in The Weatherman from 2005.
No shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
And Hoult named Cage as an inspiration for different roles. Chris McKay convinced the studio of casting Cage as Dracula by showing him Kiss of Death, or showing executives Kiss of Death, a crime movie where Cage was menacing and funny and at the same time. So, very convincing. Let's see. Nicolas Cage lived in a haunted castle for a year to write a horror script, and once he finished the script, the laptop broke.
That sounds like him.
He also owns multiple castles.
God, that's freaky. Look at this. It's a picture of Nicholas Hoult as a kid with Nick Cage.
Wow.
It's weird, isn't it?
That is super weird. He looks like he could be his son in that picture. Yeah. Like, good casting,
also,
but
Nicholas Hoult looks the exact fucking same.
He's young. He's in Hollywood. He doesn't age.
Yeah.
He's got to hit like 50 before he starts aging. Mm-hmm. That's the new thing. And lastly, during the ending credits, this is for me and my purposes only this fact. During the ending credits, one of the books shown, it says "With Power" in the title, seems to be modeled after the cover of I, Strahd. And the book is about Strahd, a powerful vampire in D&D inspired by Dracula. It's because of me, because we started our D&D campaign, which we'll talk about later. But now, it's time for the good.
The good. Dun, dun, dun.
You want to get us started?
Yes. So, first of all, best part of this movie was the action scenes. He would eat this bug, and then it would be this really well-choreographed fight scene where he just kicks everyone's asses. It's a good action scene, and they sprinkle in humor and gore very well.
Yeah.
Like, he'll just be beating people up, like a tray on the floor, and he'll kick it, and it'll hit someone in the head. Just very PG Disney, like, violence. And then he'll grab a serving plate. Some guy will have his arms out with a gun, and he'll just bring it down and slice the dude's arms off.
Didn't he, like, stab him in the eyes or something?
I don't remember that one.
I remember it being funny.
There was one where he grabs some dude's hands and kicks him in the chest or something, and it just rips the arms off.
Yes.
And so even he looks surprised. Meanwhile, Rebecca is like pinned against a wall by two guys who are just absolutely beating the shit out of her. It was actually kind of funny. And so he throws each arm like a spear, and it like through the guys. It was really entertainingly gory.
Yeah. Honestly, it had a really good level of gore and humor. I completely agree with you.
And then it culminated in a fight between Teddy and Renfield. Renfield did like a flying kick to Teddy's stomach, and it went into a Mortal Kombat style X-ray thing. And it shows him like kicking his stomach, it's breaking his spine. His mouth opens, blood comes out of that, again in X-ray form, and then you just see a whole bunch of blood come out his ass.
It was brown on the ground.
It could have been poop. It doesn't matter. Either way, it was unexpected and funny.
It was good. I liked it.
It was very, very Blade of just super cheesy, but just having fun with it, so it was entertaining.
Yeah. I have to say, I really enjoyed Nicolas Cage.
For sure.
I thought this is a role of a lifetime for him, and he for sure, like, really delivered. It didn't matter that he wasn't the leading character, because he stole the show, in my opinion. Yeah, I loved him.
My one knock is just that he kind of didn't really bring anything new to the role, which was fine because the movie itself was a new take.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be he didn't need to have Nick Cage's Dracula.
Right.
Just that was all my only note is he just played Dracula.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I don't knock him for it. I think if anything it does a good job of like creating a baseline for the movie to go elsewhere. So I think it's probably intentional.
That's fair.
I also thought Nicholas Hoult did pretty well.
Absolutely.
He definitely delivered.
Nicholas Hoult has had one of the most fascinating careers.
He's really doing well right now.
It's like, do you remember when I was talking about how Timothée Chalamet has like just been in so much good shit? Nicholas Hoult has a very similar thing.
Arguably, it's because they're both good actors, so they get cast in good stuff.
Yeah, but I mean...
But no, you're right.
There's plenty of good actors that aren't in... Like, they're famous and he's well known from it. Like, he's not just in it.
Yeah.
He was in X-Men, Mad Max. He was one of the guys.
He's also in The Great.
He's in The Menu.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to list movies people are from.
It's okay. He played Tolkien, I believe. He was in Watership Down as
He's
Fiverr.
been in a lot.
Deadpool. Although, actually, I take that back because he was just playing the same character as X-Men.
That's okay.
Yeah, so he just has been in some crazy...
He was in The Great, which was really... Have you watched it?
No, but I was curious, so I read about it.
Highly recommend it. It's pretty good. The new season comes out this Friday, so...
Okay.
Sorry, I've got it on my mind. But yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
Just enjoy. I really liked the level of just like kind of a pushover, getting himself together. Like, I thought the character was all right too. Like,
I thought it was a little boring, but Nicholas Hoult did a great job of reviving him.
That's just it. I think it had like some decent peaks that were funny versus there were some lows for sure.
A comedy abusive relationship is really hard to do well because like if you're making a movie about an abusive relationship, we can take it seriously and sympathize with the character. But if it's a comedy, then they are really just a passive character.
Yeah.
And
he did end up being a little passive.
Yeah, that was
the whole thing.
But luckily, Nicholas Hoult saves the day. He was really good.
He brought a lot to the character for sure. All right, what else did you like?
I loved the flashback where they showed the origins. It was in black and white. There was a ton of references to the old timey Draculas, including that one shot where he's all in shadow except for his eyes, which are illuminated. It really looked like the old-timey movies, and I quite liked that. Yeah,
and it set the precedent of bringing it to modern day. I think it was super impactful, and I liked that too.
I wouldn't say the movie was funny, but there were some funny moments in it.
Sure.
Like when Teddy's running from the cops and he grabbed a bag of drugs because he's like, oh god, if they find these, I'm screwed. And as he's running, he starts throwing them over his shoulder at them. There's one where this was like 30 seconds earlier than that. Rebecca is at a traffic stop, a DUI. It's explicitly specified that it's a DUI traffic stop. And she goes, I should be out there stopping real crimes. And he's like, a DUI is a real crime. And then my last favorite moment, or my last favorite funny moment from this was when Dracula's talking about all the different things he wants to eat. He's like, a bus full of cheerleaders. And Renfield's like, male cheerleaders or female cheerleaders? You know it's not sexual. Don't say it like that.
I forgot about that.
It was funny.
Yeah, the humor was medium, but
I would say it was bad with good moments.
Yeah.
The average was mediocre.
I really liked the special effects on Dracula. Mm-hmm. He, at the beginning, it established that he gets burned, but he doesn't die, but he really does burn to a crisp. Mm-hmm. And throughout, like, a good chunk of the movie, like, each time we see him, he's a little more healed. And I really liked the progression of that, and I liked how these special effects looked. Mm-hmm. One of the first looks, I thought it looked kind of cheesy, but then I realized that's kind of what they were going for, and I got into it, and I really liked it. Mm-hmm. So I really liked the special effects.
I liked that it was an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Because that's I believe, a take that has never been done before.
It was compelling.
Usually, Dracula's the man in charge with his, lackey. And then this is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first movie where they put Renfield on, like, equal footing as their quote-unquote partners, where Dracula is abusive. I can't think of any movie that's portrayed a familiar like that.
I have to agree with you. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea.
And then that just lends itself to even more comparisons about real life abusive relationships, where even though supposedly they're working together, he's his servant. He literally calls him master, stuff like that. Yeah. There was a really great scene in which when Renfield is talking at the self-help book, the self-help group, they give him a book called How to Deal with a Narcissist. And the guy says, this is your Bible. He's like, you need to memorize this. This is going to be what saves you. And later, Dracula is in his house and he's like quoting passages from it at him in a very like exorcism type way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, but I thought that was so clever.
I didn't even connect those dots, but that, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. That is really actually pretty good.
Yeah. I was actually a little bummed that it didn't have any real weight in the plot, but I enjoyed it as an Easter egg, I suppose. Yeah. Reference, whatever.
I liked the support group. I thought they were kind of dumb, but, like, in an enjoyable way.
You know, I don't remember the girl, Carol or whatever.
Yeah.
One of them was Kim from the Bye Bye Man.
Yes, you were very excited when you figured that out.
She's been in a couple.
She's also in Terrifier.
Yeah, she's been in a lot of famous things, and the only thing I know her from is the Bye Bye Man.
Did I tell you I watched Terrifier?
No, but Val told me you did.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, it was bad. Yeah. I actually think it was a little better than the second one, though.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
It was simpler. It wasn't clogged up by all this, like, magic and the weird carnival. I didn't hate it. But yeah. Anyways, back to this movie.
Last thing I think that I really enjoyed about this movie was the church massacre. Granted, they shot themselves in the foot by them bringing them back to life, but it fit the pacing of the movie so well, where it's like, you think you know where it's going. It kind of is. It's like a larger action scene. Is the action scenes go how you expect? Is he's winning the fights? He's doing cool stuff. And it just shocks you with this hilarious moment of violence.
Yeah.
And Dracula just killing everybody in the church was just like one of those moments of like, oh my God, he killed like 20 people. And so I enjoyed that. I didn't like that they then were like, but everyone was okay.
Yeah. The last thing that I really enjoyed was when Renfield got his own place.
Yeah.
And he made it so cute and cozy and homey. It was very colorful. It was adorable. And then he comes home one day to find Dracula sitting at the table. And it flashes over to the welcome mat that says, welcome, come on in. And he's like, I'm an idiot. That really stuck with
it's
me.
Like, you can't really argue with that. That's for sure an invitation inside.
But I also really liked his modern clothes. They definitely were, like, more cutesy than just, like, typical guys' clothes. But it also, like, went along with the theme that he's a pushover. It was very much, like, passive clothing.
Mm-hmm. I think they made him keep, like, a very pale demeanor. Someone with his pale skin should be wearing a suit. I think he looked best there. And so his character arc of changing clothes and looking shittier.
You're right. Oh, I completely agree that they aren't flattering on him. I just thought I enjoyed him coming to his own.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
Are you ready to talk about the bad?
Yes.
I'd like to go first and talk about what I fucking hated.
I know what it is. Go ahead.
It's Awkwafina or Rebecca. I'm just going to say Rebecca. I don't really know who Awkwafina is. I've looked her up. I don't recognize any of her shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, she's been in a ton of stuff.
But the reason I say I hate her is just because this is undeniably her acting. Is like the same people wrote Renfield's lines, and Nicholas Hoult killed it. Nick Cage killed it. Fucking Teddy did pretty goddamn well.
It was all right.
Awkwafina bombed. Every time she opened her mouth, I lost interest.
Yeah. She was giving like a monologue and I started to doze off.
She's a bad actor. Her character was constantly yelling and over swearing.
Yeah.
Which it just sounded like a 6-year-old, not even like a middle schooler wrote her. She's edgy. She's had a deeply uninteresting plot, and I just can't stress enough how bad of an actor she is. It was terrible.
Yeah, she was also my first thing on my bad list. I will say it was extremely disappointing because I saw the movie The Farewell stars her, and I thought she did a really good job in that. That movie's really good. You should watch it. But it was so disappointing to like watch her in that and then this. Mm-hmm. But she should stick to voice acting. Yeah,
and the fact that she was such a yeller meant that like
that's kind of how she portrays a lot of her comedy characters.
It was just so annoying. Like,
I'm not a huge fan of her.
Then her like ultra serious cop thing seemed really ill-fitting.
You know what the other issue was? She would go from yelling to like serious, but there was no arc or flow to it. It was all very flat.
Yeah.
I thought she was like one tone. Mm-hmm. And even when she was yelling or expressing emotion, it was still that same like tone of just like lack of facial expression. I don't know, but yeah.
And her delivery on the lines were terrible too. Is it just, she would say something and I would be like, oh, that's kind of a funny thing, but I didn't laugh because she didn't say it funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was clever, I suppose.
I'm not a good actor and I can recognize bad acting.
Yeah. And on top of that, she is so much shorter than Nicholas Hoult. It's insane. I looked it up. She's a full 1 foot and 1.5 inches shorter than Nicholas Hoult.
How tall is she?
She is 5'1" and he is 6'2.5".
Wow.
Don't know why they said 2.5, just quoting the page.
Hey, you gotta get everything you can get.
And the movie does nothing to hide it, even during like close-ups. Where all you see is his face and then her face, is you'll see his face and then you'll see like looking down at her face. It just, you were always aware at the fact that he fucking towers over her.
And large height differences are not a big deal. But in a movie where you're trying to get a shot with both of their heads, it's hard to...
Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's just distracting.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, they do a good job of making everyone look reasonably the same height unless it's a plot point that they should be a different height.
That's just it. It's not.
And so and the fact that they didn't even bother made it really distracting.
So one thing that I didn't like, there was too many subplots. Mm-hmm. There was the whole drug lord subplot and then the police corruption subplot, plus like her dad being
vengeance.
Yeah. It was too much. That
Renfield's family.
Right.
Like,
I wouldn't even complain about Renfield's family because that's just background for him and he's important. Like the other stuff wasn't important. I wanted to know more about like the relationship between Dracula and Renfield, and it just took up time. And I was like, oh, these guys again. Like they all these subplots were so forgettable. I forgot she had a sister. Actually, I didn't forget the sister because I thought the sister was part of the bad guys, but I was disappointed she wasn't. Anyways. It just, there was too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if, you're doing a D&D campaign and it's drug lord based, but someone's like, I want to be a vampire. And you're like, okay. And they're like, I'm going for world domination. And you're
you
just
would
like,
immediately pivot the story to follow that because
right,
it's way more interesting.
Exactly. Instead, you're bringing Dracula into this drug lord thing. That's uninteresting.
And then on top of that, we've just seen Dracula enough to know that, like, they're just a stepping stone for him.
Right.
So he really is just hanging around with lesser beings. He's not.
If anything, they would go to him and be in his space.
Yeah. Honestly, what I think would have been neat is if Renfield was caught in, like, the crossfires of Dracula and the family rather than the two of them working together.
Yeah.
Is like, was it the Hitman's Bodyguard that did that?
I haven't seen the Hitman's Bodyguard.
They had one thing where, like, the cops were trying to get him and assassins and this, and they're all converging on them, and they're just like, what the fuck?
They tried to do a scene like that with Renfield when the cops and the drug people showed up, but then it was just like...
They just left.
Yeah, it was so passive. Because also they're like, just turn him over, and they're all just standing there. It's like, there was no tension because obviously every single cop is on the payroll. That's another complaint I have. There's no way every single cop but her is on the drug people's payroll. Whether it's payroll or they've just convinced them to help them out, whatever. But there's no way she is the only one who's not in on it.
Yeah, and it's just poor storytelling.
I agree.
Also, I meant to mention this when I was ranting about Awkwafina, but just by comparison, Chris Rock, also a comedian, was the main character in Spiral from the Book of Saw. He was pretty bad. And he is 1,000 times better than Awkwafina was in Renfield, which is supposed to be a funny movie. I just don't get how, like...
I don't know.
He can take on a serious role and be that much better than her in a comedic role.
I don't know. The other issue I have, too, they made her a love interest for Renfield, which is just, like... They have zero chemistry.
They have no chemistry.
It was like... Oh, gosh. It was like water and vinegar. Like, they really just... They weren't even friends.
Yeah. It was like she found out about the Dracula thing so late that like they weren't even bonding over like how fucked up is this, right?
Yeah.
Is she like he had to explain it to her. It might have been nicer if maybe she met Renfield at the self-help group. Might have been interesting. Would have humanized her a little bit.
You know, I have to
they
agree.
Have something in common with Renfield.
I have to agree, because it would have established her being wowed by him with those moves would have made more sense that then she started crushing on him. Because she knows that he has, like, an emotional capability to, like, connect with her already. So it would be like, whoa, he is the total package. I'm totally into him.
Yeah. And then she would have cut him a lot more slack on how weird he was and how secretive, because he's in an abusive relationship.
Yes, exactly.
It wouldn't have been as, like... when he shows up in his new sweater, like, I want to be a good person, is like, that's a weird thing to say.
It was an odd scene.
But if you have that from the context of he's in an abusive relationship, you're like, okay, like, he doesn't feel good about himself. That's what this boils down to.
It also makes sense, her defending him to the other cops, like, listen, he's, I'll go talk to him. Like, she knows where he's coming from with the flowers and everything. Like, yeah. We should just... I'm not going to say we should write movies. We learned our lesson.
The writing was really weak.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of Marvel level dialogue of like, well, that happened. And
yeah.
One where he's throwing, when he's running and throwing the cocaine at the cops. When the cops goes, is he throwing drugs at us? I'm like, I'm watching the fucking movie. You don't need to tell me what's on screen. There's like, at one point, in one of the worst examples of Deus Ex Machina, they're like, oh, by the way, we have a buddy at the NSA who lets us use his satellites, and we're going to track Renfield that way. And I'm like, okay, sure. That doesn't make sense literally or thematically. But
right. This movie just really went off the rails a few times.
And then a lot, especially towards the end, it was a lot of characters just saying what they were going to do and then doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't very interesting.
I was disappointed that the scene where he goes to the support group and kills them all is like the best scene because they ruined it by putting it in the trailer.
They showed him in the support group. I never expected that he was going to kill everyone there.
Oh, I did. He like shows up to the support group, rises above them, and then the commercial.
Yeah, he rises up in the air, but that's not.
What do you think he's gonna do?
Attack them. We see in the trailer, we see Renfield fighting with superhuman strength.
All right.
It's not crazy to think in a comedy he would like, I'll hold them off. I was like, I knew they were in danger. I wasn't like, I'm sure they won't kill them, but I didn't expect him to, first of all, kill them, and second of all, kill all of them. Like, I thought he would hurt a bunch or kill a few, but he killed every single one of them. That I didn't see coming.
It was still a good scene. I just was like, oh, I wish I came into this a little more blind, in my opinion. The
eating bugs scene, even though it makes sense canonically, is stupid.
Yeah.
It's really dumb.
Especially the ant farm one where he takes...
I thought that was funny, at least.
It's funny, but it just was like, I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't love the setup for it. I didn't love...
Even the movie had to acknowledge that the bug thing was stupid.
Yeah.
In the opening, he's like, I eat bugs to gain my power. Dracula eats blood. That's how he gains his power. I eat bugs. Get over it. And I'm like, yeah, it is fucking stupid. I'm glad you told me to get over it because I wouldn't have otherwise.
I was disappointed how short-lived the idea of Dracula taking over the world was. Like, he mentioned it, and that's kind of really all we got.
He didn't have a plan. Like, that would have been better if Dracula had some kind of a plan that he was going to do that then Renfield had to stop, but instead it was more just like big picture. 5-year plan. He wanted to be ruling the world.
Yeah. My last thing is that there were way too many background characters that were extremely forgettable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt like they reintroduced the mother every single time she was in the shot. It would be like a dramatic turn to her every time.
Mm-hmm. She would have been better as kind of less of like an actual character and more just a force that guides Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy was interesting enough. We didn't need a like bigger bad guy.
Right. We could have had like an ending reveal where she's kind of there at the end, but we didn't need her ahead of time pushing Teddy along.
First of all, I mentioned that I hated that Dracula's blood brought people back to life.
Oh yeah, that was dumb.
I also hate that that's just such a stupid concept that healing stuff can bring you back to life. If you're going to...
he brings back the entire support group.
Yeah, like, why didn't he bring back fucking Gandhi or Abe Lincoln? Or
why didn't he bring back Awkwafina's dad?
Yeah, So that's why it's always just, like, accepted in movies that if something can heal you, you have to be alive.
Yeah.
That's the line, is if you die before you're healed, you're dead.
And then also, he leaves the thing of Dracula's blood at the meeting. Like, you're not gonna just take that random places and heal people.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be a good guy.
And then, lastly, the character arc of him realizing he has power over Dracula thematically made sense, but just on a physical level was stupid.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Just, the familiar's the one who gives him power. I'm like, well, that's dumb. I get where you're coming from a abusive relationship, but that doesn't... You shouldn't run the plot through this. This is where you should part ways with the metaphor. Alright, you ready to talk about the spooky?
Yeah.
The spooky!
Ooh. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot to write anything down.
Okay, there wasn't much spooky.
There really wasn't much. I do have something to say. I get the special effects was kind of spooky.
His arms getting chopped off with the servant plate. That was the spooky part for me.
Or the arms getting ripped off, I think.
That was another good one.
All right.
So, overall, movie was okay. Awkwafina was terrible. I might have honestly quite enjoyed this movie if they cast someone else.
I think so.
She was so bad. And she was the worst character to be bad, too. She was supposed to be, like, the audience of oh my god, isn't this messed up? And the fact that she was, instead of Renfield or Nick Cage, the fact that she was bombing of all the three main characters.
I would have rather her almost overacting. rather
absolutely.
than the underacting.
Yeah. There's a similar concept movie, like right down to the fact that the love interest was a cop that I just can't remember, but the actress they got for that was outstanding.
I have no idea what movie you're talking about.
Maybe it was another vampire movie. Doesn't matter. Maybe it was Blade, actually. It doesn't matter. But just Awkwafina sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's one of my biggest complaints about this movie. One of Renfield's arcs is that he's like, I want to be a hero. I want to be a good person. He's not like a not great guy. He's a really shitty dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that what he did is forgivable. And I certainly know that what he was doing of just trying to live well is not enough for forgiveness.
No.
Is like, aside from all of the vampire stuff he did, like, for starters, he almost directly caused the deaths of 2 hunters trying to kill Dracula. He killed all kinds of people. We're supposed to think they were all abusive, but they show right in the beginning just some woman. So he just abandoned his wife and child.
Yeah, like, most importantly.
Dracula
does point out that he's like, hey, listen, like, you're to blame here.
Yeah, but they
made part of this.
At the end, they were like, see, anybody can be a good guy. And I was like, you should be in jail. You are a murderer.
Forgive and forget. Yeah. I mean, listen, my thoughts are, this movie was a little boring. I was disappointed. Boring, yeah. It kind of felt like the writers gave up after casting Nick Cage as Dracula. There was very little rising action. There wasn't that much tension. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that scary.
It was a very complex build-up and then very simple play out.
I really didn't give you much.
Like they had all these factions joining up, and then in the end, it's just ended by them going there and beating people up.
Yeah, I felt the movie overall was flat. Mm-hmm. Like Awkwafina's acting.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have a rating?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this 5 getting punched in the stomach so you shit yourself.
Okay, I gave it a 4.5 yummy bugs.
Yeah, could have been better. I don't think it ever could have been great, but it maybe could have been good. Maybe.
Yeah.
Had good bones. Anyway, the final quote we have is Renfield. I am enough. I deserve happiness. And I take full charge of my life today. Just because I thought that...
Give me a little inspiration?
Yeah, for anyone out there.
All right, sweet. What are we watching next week?
Come and see.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did actually pick something.
which David non-stop rants about, so we'll check that out.
Okay. So we'll have a guest next week?
Probably not.
So next week we'll do Come and See Me.
We will link our video, because we should be allowed to by the time this comes out.
I think so. Unless you want to see it ahead of time, then we'll give you the pay link if you really want it. Good God.
All right.
I don't know if I'm ready for other people to see it because I look atrocious. And that's coming from the fact that Carter is a creep in the video.
In the video, thank you.
I was gonna
You took your time.
Yeah. Dramatic pause. Okay, cool. Well, what else? Anything else to share? We started our D&D campaign this week.
We don't want to spoil it, but...
You're gonna save it?
We'll have some good stuff for it later.
All right, then we'll save that for later.
Okay.
Cool.
So, with that...
Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. Go ahead and give us a follow on the Instagram. Or check out our website, horrorsucks.com. And...
Stay spooky.
Horror Sucks is brought to you... Jesus Christ. Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Editing done by one of us. Production done by the other. Bye.